response video to some guy, whoever, blubber or something. No cure for futility. So I suppose it's going to be some sort of argument. There's a simple argument, okay, like there's two approaches to some problem. One cure is the fail-safe, complete cure you go for, which is just eliminate the problem. You know, undo the problem in the sense that don't break the mechanism that creates the problem. Cure the problem, cure the disease. Find a cure for, say, malaria. The other approach is to band-aid the symptoms, to keep treating the people inflicted with a disease and just make the best of it. You know, you could spend your resources on the one approach or the other, and like in some circumstances, like I could argue for like the problem of too many deer in New Jersey, you can kill 60,000 of them every year, have 30,000 of them hit by cars, or you could have one bad year where you kill 120,000 of them and you're good for 20 years. For 20 years, you don't have to kill any deer because you knock the population down low enough where it's going to take a decade or more for it to thrive, to take over again, to reach exponential population growth, or whatever the right terminology would be. So, you know, those are the two approaches you could take to a problem. And so he's, I think, counter-arguing against this idea that we can cure the problem. So let's probably break this into clips because he plays my video and then does his spiel. So I'll just cut out the part where I'm talking and just do the part where he's talking. Or try to do that anyway.
Insincere. Because somehow you say, we'll take a short-term hit.
Yeah, I mean, that's crap, but the point is, you don't have a cure, right? You just don't have a cure.
Okay. So, yeah, again, I don't know what you're basing that on. There's lots of endgame scenarios where it's fairly easy that you could say, well, look, I can wipe it out in 10 notes. And then somebody says, no, I can do it in 5. And somebody else says, I can do it in 3. And so there's all kinds of different ways you could wipe it out or you could cure the problem. Let's say the cure is just the extinction of life on this planet. A source in the universe, you know, if I think it's, I don't know, if suns supernova in a certain way, they create a gamma ray or a beam of radiation that can basically just shoots you know, everything in its path, just blows it up, you know. It just annihilates it. Now that could happen to the Earth at any time. We get irradiated without even a direct hit. Let's say we just get, you know, a glancing blow, you know, and it could be just devastating to the habitability of the planet. There's so many scenarios where our own sun could defect, and sunspots alone could make life here incredibly hostile. It could be hostile conditions. And, you know, we can do better than that anyway, right? I mean, you could argue we can do better than what nature's going to do when it finally does kill us. I mean, if we don't do anything, we're going to die anyway. We will be exterminated. Eventually, the fly swatter of the universe is going to swat us. And I guess my only standard for my cure is that it has to be less horrific than nature's fly swatter. And that's pretty hard to do worse than nature. So certainly I think there are cures. There are ways of doing it to minimize the amount of suffering imposed.
The red button experiment is a thought experiment. It's not, you know, it's not a cure. It's not something we can work towards, right? You've got to have...
well, it says you. I don't see anything stopping us from working towards it, so I don't, you know, yeah, we don't have it now, but there's nothing stopping us from, you know, in theory, certainly having the capacity to reduce the amount of life on Earth and then finally just nuke what's left.
You've got to have a cure before you can persuade people that cure is going to be worthwhile.
For a long
Well, I just think it would be totally unproductive to be talking about those end game scenarios. It's like when you're selling a car, you don't, the selling point on the car isn't, describing how, well, in 10 years, yeah, the body will rust and you'll have this problem and that problem, but, these are really good, synthetic material on the seats, so the seats will still be good, but yeah, this will be rotten and that'll be degraded and this won't work anymore. You don't bother with all that crap. I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm just saying, you're saying that there is no, we don't have a capacity to develop a exit strategy that is minimalistic in terms of the amount of harm it causes. I don't think there's anything stopping us from developing a minimalistic, graceful, orchestrated exit. Just a nice little song and dance off the stage to the left. We don't have to fall off the stage. We can gracefully exit.
term gain.
Okay, I'm not going to do that. Alright, I'll be back. Alright, we'll see if we can make something of this part.
The reality of evolution and how awful it is, it would be ridiculous to say to them that they are somehow approving of that or enabling that. And I think the problem that a lot of people have and maybe haven't expressed very well is that it's all very well pointing out how awful life is, but and that people accept that, but just to say that I have a solution to this, and that if you don't agree with me, then it's all you fuckers' fault. Get over there with the insane psychological cunts.
Well, there's a certain truth to it. It's sort of an all or nothing game. So, I guess that's sort of what he's arguing here is that, I don't know, what's the metaphor for it? And it has to be done all or nothing. I mean, it's either a complete solution or there's no solution. I mean, unfortunately, it sort of is like if you're fighting polio. There's no winning the fight if, you don't try to eradicate it. It's like the smallpox thing. It's basically eradicated in the environment. It only exists in a laboratory somewhere, theoretically. It's and the idea is it's all or nothing. It's if you leave a little bit of it behind, you don't win. The strategy has to be complete. You can't half fight the war. You can't just you could invest a whole lot of energy in a war, and the war is going to take 5 years to get the job done, and you quit in 3. Well, that's just not going to be. It's just going to be a waste of resources. You just wasted the money then. I mean, there's certain jobs that have to be, if they're not completed, there's no point in starting them. It's like maybe even a painting might be an example. I mean, some paintings, right, are when they're halfway done are pretty good, but in most cases, a half finished it looks half finished. A half built car, let's say. That's sort of a good example. You could build the car and then not put the wheels on it. It's just, God, that would be really, really stupid. You build a really great car and you just don't put wheels on it. I mean, what's the point? It's just stupid. So yeah, if somebody, if you're going to lag in doing your wheel job, it's a critical flaw. It's a fundamental catastrophic error. I don't know. So that made my comparisons. But let's see if we have something else here.
Because you do.
Back to me again. Anyway, I'd be back.
Cases, he says. Well, let's go with the cases that don't involve outright murder then. I mean, the subject is the authority of you individuals to play God, to say, I know it'll work.
But they're not playing God, are they? They're just...
Well, it's hilarious. Well, of course they are. God is the creator. I'll create animals out of the soil. I'll instigate their production. Everybody who validates or endorses or says yes, go ahead and replicate, is playing God. They're saying somehow they have the authority and the capacity to instigate, create the capacity to press the button, the go button, the facilitate button. If you own a bridge and you let people cross the bridge, you're facilitating people getting from one side to the other. There's just no doubt about it. If you're helping create a means, or you're helping, if all you have to do is put a stop sign, a bar that falls down in front of the road, okay? So to say that's your capacity. You have a bar. You can put it down in front of the road and stop the traffic, or you can let the traffic go. If you let the traffic go, the cars go across and the train hits them. Well, whose fault is it? You lifted the bar. If there was no reason for you to take the bar away and let the traffic go, then you wouldn't have any accountability, right? You have to. It's your cause. It's your reason. You can control that gate. That gate's your ownership. Is your influence. So if your influence is to lift your gate, let's say all human beings, let's say every single one of us has a gate, in front of the thing, and deciding whether the traffic's going to be allowed to go across those railroad tracks is going to be dictated by everybody removing their gate. I mean, quite obviously, you can see that if it's quite clear. The only flaw with this metaphor is it doesn't explain. What has to be explained is that my gate can't prevent your gate from opening. Somehow you can let the traffic through, and I can't do anything with my gate to stop you. And it's your action that's going to allow what I can't prevent. Let's see. Well, the point is, it is playing God. It's just silly to say it's not playing God, because it is playing God. It's an act of volition. The fact that nature provides the tools to play God, it gives you the gun to shoot. Come on. You don't have to shoot the gun. You don't have to shoot it in the wrong... There was a metaphor. Shoot it in the wrong... Yeah, you can't call it I don't know. But you don't have to shoot it there. You can shoot it somewhere else. You can shoot something else, and then everything's okay. That's the point.
They're as much of a victim of the situation as you are.
Well, again, that's just silly. People who advocate and defend people taking on the responsibility of to initiate a process that creates a new life, that is hardly a victim. We have every mechanism of control, every capacity to take control. To say they can't control their behavior, can't prevent themselves from acting, is stupid. To say they can't understand the simple, that they can't somehow find humility and intimidation by the very idea that they're going to be responsible for the creation of another being, no, I'm sorry. That's within their grasp. That's an accessible truth that you should be scared to death to mess with that.
It's attempting to cure.
But you're not curing it. If you decide not to have children, which is fine, that's a good ethical position, right? You're not. You're preventing an instance of suffering, right? But you're not curing the problem, right? Because
yeah, exactly. Because I can't control the behavior of the other crazy bastards who are playing God. Me not playing God does not stop other people from playing God. So I have to stop them some other way besides me not playing God. Quite obviously, I didn't get here because an antinatalist gave birth to me, quite obviously.
All the resources, all the energy, and everything else that an individual requires to live, that's all still out there, and that is going to be used by other organisms. That's what.
Yeah, well, whatever. I'm just saying we certainly can control how those mechanisms behave. It's specific behavior that creates that maintains reproduction. specific behavior produces copies. Certainly in humans, that specific behavior has been controlled by 80% of the population, maybe even higher, maybe 85 or 90% of the population by statistical fact. If we extract the 10% of the highest child producers from the human population or from the statistics, we should just to take them out of the statistics, the human race is already in anti-natalist extinction decline. It's already on an unsustainable curve towards annihilation. So the truth is, the human race is already behaving anti-natalist. So the cure has already been engaged for 90% of the human race. So of course we can do it for the last 10%. It's just a willingness to act.
I thought.
The simple mathematics.
Whatever. I don't know. Yeah. So wrong. I don't. Your simple statements are just that. They're simplistic statements. I don't even know what kind of response do you expect in this video. Somehow we can't. Well, no, we can. We can control other people's behavior. We can make laws saying you can't do shit. You know, it's just not that complicated. We can incentivize and de-incentivize through law. So screw this crap. I don't know what your point is. We'll see where this goes. I say something like the disease is playing the game that doesn't need to be played.
Disease is playing a game that doesn't need to be played.
The disease is the laws of physics.
Oh, I mean, that's just silly. The disease is the laws of physics. Physics somehow dictates that on somewhere in the universe it has to happen. A reproducing molecule will be formed. It will be the type of molecule that creates that will be used like a blueprint, and genes will evolve that will manifest into life forms, and they will develop into sentient life forms. That's another huge barrier. We don't even understand how that developed in the first place. Somehow that this is some sort of inevitable function of the universe or physics. Bullshit. Where's your evidence of that? Nonsense. No evidence whatsoever. It happened one time in all known particulate universal physics. One time. And in all these much older universe, billions of years of head start on us. So a civilization would be billions, theoretically could be billions of years more advanced than we are. And yet there's not a blip, not a bit of evidence, not any shine of not a piece of metal, not a piece of hardware, not any kind of Sputnik. Nothing. No evidence of their existence whatsoever. So I think it pretty much demonstrates that the universe isn't full of life. It isn't full of things flying around and having interesting adventures in the universe. So bullshit on that fucking it's physics. Bullshit.
The disease is maintaining a game of tic-tac-toe that nothing with a really good or working brain can play.
The disease is we can't do anything other than do that.
What do you mean you can't do anything other than replicate to a number of 2.1 children per couple? You have no choice. You have to produce more than 2.1 children. Even though 90% of the human population doesn't do that and only 10% does, somehow we can't do better. That 90% number is the best we can do. We can't make it 95% and therefore create world population growth that's less than 2.1 children per couple and would inevitably lead to extermination. What is that? That doesn't make any sense. Fuck. You're going to have to make a better argument than this. You're just wasting my goddamn time.
And the phony whip. They can see past these biological mechanisms that are attempting to control behavior. And they can say,
well, I can see past those carrots too, but I just can't see how I can affect the laws of nature.
The laws of nature. What does that mean? What law of nature says that we have to exist? There was no law of nature that says Tyrannosauruses will exist forever and ever and ever and ever. No. The laws of nature didn't say there's life on Mars, there's life on Venus, there's life on Mercury, there's life on the moon. Laws of nature don't dictate the existence of life on Earth. What are you talking about? It doesn't dictate that we do any of this stuff. We are in complete control. We can decide to say yes to eating chocolate pie, or we can say I've already eaten too much chocolate pie and so I won't eat any more chocolate pie. We can desire something and completely control the desire. We're in complete control of the biology now. We can make condoms. We can become sterilized. I mean, this is our game to play. What the hell are you talking about? The laws of nature. Fuck. This is a really irritatingly annoying video. What else is new?
But you know, at the same time, you know, they can be concerned, you know, for all those good reasons, about unleashing, you know, some kind of half-assed vague idea that we can do something about it without.
Yeah, well, even the whole attitude of some kind of half-assed vague idea, you're basically just saying that this is you're outlining a direction, right? The specific exactly how you will do it thing, okay, is important, but it's not necessary to understand the idea of it, right? There's nothing fundamentally catastrophic in the idea itself. Now, this was a comparison between genocide versus, say, voluntary extinction, and the fact that somebody argued that genocidists are bigoted individuals are somehow less evil. And I'm arguing, of course not. We can see that direction is based on a false premise, that somehow there's good humans, you know, genetically superior and genetically inferior. There's a false, flawed piece of information that went into that posing of a direction. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with this idea of a fail-safe direction, saying, well, look, let's just stop making nuclear power plants, or let's just stop some sort of, you know, fouling the environment or some other thing. Yeah, it would be, you have to compromise or change your lifestyle to change your carbon footprint. But the idea that you should change your carbon footprint is not flawed or fundamentally bad or fundamentally catastrophic. Now, obviously, you know, how you implement is important. But again, if we're talking about in proportions, we're talking about what's at stake for failure. And failure is the scenario with the deer problem, you know, where you're just making World War III and World War IV and World War V and World War VI inevitable if you do nothing. So acting can almost not fail. You almost can't fail in trying to break the pattern because the pattern is so insidious. The road we're traveling now is so destructive and dangerous in terms of the future probabilities of what the inevitable outcome will be of this uncontrolled replication. It's unsustainable. It's nothing but horror stories. So I mean, it's almost like anything that deviates from the path we're on has to be called success, even if it's a drunk driving us into the ditch. It's better than driving the road we're on. Shit.
Pinning down exactly what that is, and how we are going to go about it.
Well, I mean, really, like I said, here's how we're going to go about it. Yeah, make people who have babies pay for the full expense of having kids. Create great orphanages. Force people who are on welfare to get sterilized. Yeah, to control the ignorant 10% of the population who's having 90% of the babies. So, yeah. Okay, change those numbers. Change that dynamic, and the human population starts declining. And the more aggressive you are in those programs, the more aggressively will be the decline. And in 2 or 3 generations, you could get down to 1 billion or a few 100 million human beings on Earth. And so what, like I say, how detailed a blueprint do you need? You know, how many millions of people do you need left over behind to manage the animal population and do exactly the same thing for it? Okay, just slowly through attrition knock off species by species by species of the higher organisms until you get down to a pretty froggy reptilian world, and then just nuke it from space, so to speak. Just nuke it. But why even go into the end game scenario when the real argument needs to be about the mission? The will is what's lacking. Okay, details on how they're just that, details on how. We can make a cake. All right, the objective is make a birthday cake. Well, yeah, there's a million ways to do that. Okay, and it'll be a perfectly suitable cake. So I don't see any obligation to have to detail exactly what the plan is. All right, it's not that complicated. You gracefully exit the stage. You gracefully walk a little bit sideways, waving goodbye. It's not that complicated to gracefully bow out of the let's play God game. Jesus. Okay, just going to go back to playing my video. I'll be back. Okay, the guy's saying we're not gods again, so let's see what he's going with this.
Change the laws of physics. Well, as far as, well, it's just preposterously unrealistic to think that we could ever be able to do that.
So again, he's compared a replicating molecule with the laws of physics. That somehow it's the laws of physics that molecules replicate, get caught up in a replicating syndrome, and that replication somehow inevitably obligates the creation of sentience, and inevitably obligates the something, some reason. Even if this were true, even if the laws of physics demanded the existence of living things on the crust of planets, the argument is this living mass on this planet, and whether or not there's any point in perpetuating any more than there's any point in perpetuating or reinventing Tyrannosauruses. Should we reintroduce Tyrannosauruses because nature made them once? We'll just validate the design and say, let's make them again. It was a good idea. Let's put Tyrannosauruses in space. No, it's nonsensical and stupid. There'd be absolutely no point in doing it. And the point is that the only thing that validates the existence of human beings is human beings. They validate it through their perception. They don't validate it by recognizing that there's some need in the universe to be served, or some logic that says, yes, they're somehow better than Tyrannosauruses, that they're somehow more productive in some way. I mean, it's just silly. You're not making an argument. You're just saying physics says so? No, it doesn't. Where does physics say human life can't be eradicated? Like that. Where does physics say it can't happen? It doesn't say it anywhere. So I don't understand this argument from it exists, therefore it is, and therefore we shall not change it. No, there's no such rule. I mean, it's just, I'm sorry, it's a vacant argument. I can't do anything with a vacant argument. You might as well be just saying, God says I can't do it. Well, I don't care what God says. God can go fuck himself. Alright, a good portion of this is just him playing my video, which is quite good because my arguments are pretty interesting and pretty rock solid, so that part he wins on. More of my video you can play, the more you win. So then he's going to start to talk about value here, so we'll see if we can get anything out of this.
Things which value, and that there are going...
So he says things which value. So he's talking about now the subjective nature of these biological carbon units with the consciousness thing. And I've made this argument over and over again, so I won't re-argue it. But yet there's two parts to this value equation. It's the intrinsic fundamental value created by the sentient organism's welfare, its condition. My condition right now is not terrible, but I don't have a nail going through my head. I don't have a migraine headache. I don't have the symptoms of chemotherapy. I don't have a lot of things that could be making me quite miserable. So I'm not quite miserable. I'm just, just kind of a little low noise. It's not a loud noise. It's not a no noise. It's just tolerable. Well, I've accepted it. Let's put it that way. And how acceptable it is another question. Anyway, so I have a state of being. Then I have a perception of value. I value this nicotine bottle because it has nicotine in it, and I like nicotine. other things that I might value. I could value looking at some image or watching something or whatever. So my projections of value, the things that I look at that make me feel better, okay, again, that's a different kind of value. It's value indirectly created through the intrinsic valuer, the intrinsic value maker. But let's understand that all of those, this fact that this nicotine has value, that's completely mutable. What we as individuals value is mutable to our psychology, and our psychology is completely changeable. We can be conditioned to value very different things. We see that human beings come out in a huge variety of value projectors. Some value, fish heads. Some value babies. Some value orgies. And I can argue that there's a certain productivity in the orgy valuer versus the baby valuer. And that we should move people, we should migrate people to orgy valuing rather than baby valuing. But it's just a simple logical analysis stating there is a performance enhancement in the function of the value machine if it doesn't create mess, if it doesn't create need, that it creates more satisfaction in the world, more comfort than harm, that it keeps things going rather than the negative loud noise, that it mitigate against harm. They create less harm. Yeah, that's a measure of function. And we can function high performance well, or we can function low performance sloppy and poorly.
The value assignments that they make, which are going to be difficult, if not impossible, for them to escape from, right? And I suppose you could say, well, that could be a definition of suffering, right?
Well, this difficult to escape from thing is sort of bogus, right? I might as well watch a movie while we're at it. Of course we can. That's the whole argument, is that we are not required to want anything. I mean, it is all mutable. We know that people can be vegetarian. People can be, I like to go swimming. They come in all varieties. So there's no obligation to be a certain kind of human. There's no obligation. There's very, very few parts of our need structure that aren't mutable, that we can't migrate, change, modify, reconstruct. We are consumers and reproducers biologically. Biologically, we become addicted. We can choose to be cannibalistic or uncannibalistic. Yes, our nature is cannibalistic, but obviously by refinement we can reduce the amount of harm that we create to equals in our navigation of our life. We can step on fewer other conscious entities. We can modify our dance to create fewer dents in the floor. You know what I'm saying?
In an instance of pain is not necessarily a bad thing. The bad thing is being in pain and not being able.
Well, look, I would argue that this idea that pain is somehow not necessarily a bad thing is just another projection, because you're saying that the pain is worth it because it's going to mitigate against some other pain somewhere else, that Jesus hanging on the cross is okay because he's going to forgive a whole bunch of sin, and so the world's going to be a better place, so it's worth it. Those equations are a different equation. The pain itself is intrinsically bad. It's just bullshit to say it's not necessarily bad. No, it is necessarily a bad thing when a sentient organism experiences the negative state. And there's no point to have any of the negative state if you're going to get rid of all the negative state. If you can maintain whatever the positive is that you can agree upon exists, with the lowest cost, so that's what you go with. You always reduce the cost of production.
To escape that condition.
myself.
Well, again, escape that condition. The condition is not unescapable. So that premise is not one I agree with. I don't see anything unescapable about any condition of the human organism. It's all escapable. Yes. Okay, he played some more of my video. He points out again that I don't have the cure. And then I say this, and he's going to say something, and we'll see what he says again. So this should be revealing. Let's see.
Ends to apply my lethal final cure.
Well, to be honest, I mean, I don't know you, right? But from my perception of what your character and your ethical outlook and everything else, yeah, I don't think you would. And because it really depends on what that cure is, and we know that if the cure was pressing a red button, then sure, you'd do that. I'd do that. Many other people would do that. But we know that.
Well, so then what's the problem here? All we do is create a practical mechanism in the world that effectively does the same thing. Maybe it takes 100 or 200 years. Maybe it takes 20 years. But once it's the mission statement, once the end goal is, okay, this is where we want to end up, and we want to end up there with as little tears going down the cheek as possible, as few distractions by any kind of thing called harm, to do it in some sort of, do it the orgy way. Find a way to just do it all in some orgy manner, okay? Let's try to make a new physics, okay? Again, the fission, reactor kind of scenario. You can plasma the whole thing, maybe. The truth is it's there to be had. There are ways to create mechanisms of instantaneous destruction. And there's ways to do it in slower ways also, where you just decline in terms of what you're producing. But all of those mechanisms are the same as the metaphorical red button. The red button is just a metaphor for the will to do it. And the will is to do it in some way where you minimize the negative effect. But the bottom line is compared to the road we're on, billions of creatures harmed, it's hard to come up with a fail scenario. It's hard to do it worse than the road we're on right now. The road we're on right now is going to be horrific in terms of how we're going to fall down the cliff of our unsustainable behavior. So this idea that somehow the making the red button a practical reality is somehow going to be worse, I think is just a nonsensical accusation. I don't think you could do it worse than humans are going to do it in their positive thinking. Rainbow chasing is going to be a much worse scenario than any kind of doom specter that could impose upon them. We were already in the gulag. You really can't go down from here.
That's not going to be. There isn't going to be a nice way of doing this. And the problem with the philosophy is it.
Well, again, there's not going to be a nice way of doing this. What isn't nice about giving people a couple of $1,000 to get sterilized? What isn't nice about just saying, well, you're going to have to pay your bills? What isn't nice about creating Disneyland orphanages? Well, I mean, there's lots of nice ways to do this, so it's just a lie. You're just projecting some kind of naysaying, nitpicking bullshit, doing exactly what I complain about in the videos. You're just saying nay, nay, nay. You're not saying anything else. You're just saying no. Well, fuck that. Yeah, fuck that. I don't have an argument for you beyond the fact that if your imagination is that stale, what do I have to seed your entire imagination? Do I really have to go through every single possible scenario of solution here, but I mean there are a ton of them. Okay, they're and some of them are only by projection negative, right? I mean, I could come up with a James Bond villain who, had a sterilization flower, and he was going to sterilize everything on Earth and start a new race. Well, let's just say if we took the new race part out, all right, took out the eugenics crap, and just had the sterilizing crap. Well, it's pretty benign, right? Oh, everybody's sterilized. What's the harm in that? Oh, that means free orgies. And it's only 10% of the population would be in crisis, right? Because only 10% of the population has some sort of hysterical need to make 10 babies.
It leaves it entirely open-ended as to how much horror you would be prepared to use in order to...
Again, how much horror compared to what? Compared to the last 10,000 years of human history? Compared to what's happening right now to billions of creatures every year in slaughterhouses, in factory farms? Compared to the fucking genocide taking place every other Thursday in Africa? What the fuck are you comparing it to? Like I'm going to be more draconian or more insensitive or more torturous than these mechanisms? Like I'm going to come up with a worse idea than Adolf Hitler's let's starve the Jews to death? I'm afraid not. Yeah, I'm afraid that's a bogus accusation. That's worse than red baiting. Oh yeah, somehow I'm going to be worse than Stalin and Khrushchev and name them all, put them all in a pile and say somehow I'm going to be worse than all of these horrible forces of history. Bullshit. It's just a cheap accusation, another cheap accusation, another unfounded cheap accusation. How can I possibly fail worse than you guys have? And I mean you guys in the sense of naysayer. You say you're a red button pusher, but you're not somebody who thinks that humans can do this on their own, like landing on the moon or something. You're basically like just a naysayer. No, it's made of cheese. You can't go up to the moon. You land on it, you'll sink into the cheese. No, I don't think so. I think I can land on the moon.
Make the cure, all right? If what you're setting up as what you're avoiding is millions of years of Bergen-Belson's metaphorically or whatever, or actually, that's what you're avoiding. You're avoiding a complete horror show of a mountain of horror in the future. And you put this into some kind of equation of, well, what do we need to negate that horror?
Well, you could just argue that an asteroid hit Earth. It completely disrupted the Earth, and for a generation, the life forms had to rebalance, and in the rebalancing, Tyrannosaurus no longer existed. So you cured the disease of Tyrannosaurus. It was expensive in terms of the disruption, but obviously hundreds of millions of years of carnage were prevented in that sense, in that limited view. Obviously, life still exists, so the new Tyrannosauruses just look different. We're still Tyrannosauruses, right? I mean, we're not any worse than the Tyrannosauruses in terms of the mayhem we create. So obviously it wasn't a very good exchange in that sense. But I just mean for the Tyrannosaurus itself. So we just take human existence as yes, you could eliminate with a frickin' asteroid impact, and one could argue that it's the best thing that ever happened. It's the truth. So you can sit there and say, oh, horror, horror, but it's the fucking truth.
Then it's totally open-ended as to how much horror, almost.
Well, you're saying it's open-ended. How can it possibly be open-ended when the end game is the red button scenario? So you're just saying that I'm going to fail to press the red button. I'm going to fail to come up with a actual solution that is red button-esque. because to say it's open-ended would be silly. The whole point of doing it is to end it. So you're just saying that somehow I can't end it. Well, I'm saying I can end it, okay? That part I can guarantee. You're saying that it's going to be somehow too expensive. I'm going to argue there's no fucking way it could be too expensive. I mean, if the way I did it was to stick a knife in every human's eyeball, okay, probably I've done better than what will be the road we're on now. Me sticking a knife in every human being's eyeball is probably going to cause less suffering and less horror than what the human race has in store for us and for other sentient beings. Because again, let's just say 1 year of the animals in slaughterhouses in industrial farming, 1 year of their existences is more suffering than me going to every human being and sticking a knife in their fucking eye. That's the fucking truth. You want to admit it or not is your choice, okay? But the fucking truth is the suffering we're imposing every year equals me sticking a knife in every human being's eyeball. So if my solution was, let's stick a knife in every human being's eyeball, I'd still be way the fuck ahead of you sadistic lunatics who keep saying, let's just keep playing a moronic game. Let's just keep sticking our knives in the eyeball of other sentient creatures. Well, fuck you. Fuck that. And we haven't even gotten to what nature's doing every fucking day. Every fucking day, billions of creatures die miserably. Well, every day, billions? Well, I don't know. Creatures, yes. Let's say hundreds of millions of conscious feeling creatures die miserably and slowly as if a knife was shoved in their eye. Every day. This is happening by nature's dictate. And you're saying I'm the failure? You're afraid of me? I'm sorry, you're afraid of the wrong guy. Look out there and smell the shit.
That you would be prepared to use, and so, you know, how many Bergen-Belsens would you put up against this future horror?
Well, again, so here another cheap fucking accusation. Now you're going to compare me to somebody completely evilly motivated who's bigoted against Jews. I mean, what the fuck's the point of having a conversation in that context? Fuck you, I don't accept your analogy. I don't accept that fucking perverse and disgusting comparison. But the truth of the matter is, if what you're fighting was the AIDS virus, you wouldn't sit there and be concerned about whether or not it was in a concentration camp, would you? I mean, again, we're not innocent. So this is another part of this that's got to be accepted. That we don't really deserve some sort of, profitable termination. We deserve to get what we've given, which is shit. But that's not even the point. I'm not even arguing any of that's necessary. But again, why would I need to put people in concentration camps, you stupid fuck? Why would I need to torture people or cause them any unnecessary harm? So if you're going to describe a Birken belt or a shitten belt or some other fucking belt, why don't you just say, all right, what gives you the right to shoot people in the back of the head when they're not even looking? Okay, so that's going to be my concentration camp. Yeah, you get a little bullet to the back of your head. You don't even know it's goddamn coming. So explain how make that a Birken belt, or make that some other kind of wished, or some other kind of liverwurst. I mean, fuck you. Fuck this shit. Slandering bastard.
And I don't think that you would sanction 1,000 years of million Bergen-Belsens.
Oh, yeah. What is that? What is that? Yeah, right. Okay, I propose that we make fuckers who want to have kids pay for their fucking kids. I've proposed the horror that we force welfare cunts to goddamn get sterilized, and that's somehow Birkenbelt. Fuck you.
It's trillions of Bergen-Belsens.
Oh, fuck this. Fuck, no, I'm not even... fuck this. Your video's over. Fuck you. Fuck you. Alright, we'll go to my Misery and Me's video. He made it busy. I mean, you're a fucking asshole and a cunt. Fuck you and that bullshit. What a fucking irrational argument. It's irrational for smart people to tell stupid people they can't be reckless assholes. Oh, that's not our right. Fuck you, it's my right. I'm not judging the people based on the composition of their genetics. I'm judging them on the content of their fucking character and their behavior. They're behaving as if they don't have any obligation to be rational. They're doing what God says. Well, fuck you. If you believe in God, you're an idiot, and you have no right to decide the destiny of the human race. No right whatsoever. I will take that right away from human beings. That's right. Any asshole who believes in God has no right to impose life. He's an idiot. Ugh, God. Cunt. Just that more, I mean, the video is basically highlighting exactly why I get pissed off. You fucking weaselly cunt. You compare me to goddamn Adolf Hitler, and I shouldn't say fuck you, you fucking piece of shit. I mean, really. Fuck you, you piece of shit. Use the tool here. Oops, wrong tool. Yeah, whoops. I hit the wrong button. Okay, my fault.
Would you put up
fuck you.
against...
Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you.
Would you put up
fuck you
against this future?
Fuck you.
And
fuck you.
I don't think that
fuck you. Fuck you. I don't think there's any desperation you won't resort to in terms of trying to defend a preposterously silly notion that people can't get over their desire to have babies. Baby, I can't stop myself.
This is a response to Hoover Bower's video, No Cure to Futility.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Oh, here's these asshole, this Zionist slut bitch, who keeps talking about, I actually have castor seeds, you idiot. I just ordered 450 castor seeds. In its powdered form, it's known as the poison ricin. I plan on swallowing all 450. Well, number one, they're big seeds, retard. And go ahead and do that. It'll make you nice and sick, and you'll suffer and die. So, Misery, it's been nice knowing you. So, yeah, just go ahead. Take your castor seeds. Play your stupid, idiotic game. You do it in all the comment sections, your stupid castor seeds. Like I said, I have them. I have some right on my porch. I have castor seeds. Right? Okay? But, yeah, it's not, there's a million better ways to die than taking castor seeds. Okay? It's one of the worst ways you could possibly kill yourself is with ricin. Okay, because unless you get a huge amount of it, and unless you get it the right way, it's going to make you horrifically sick. But yeah, that's what you deserve, Zionist slut. I hope you die from ricin poisoning, you fucking cunt, bitch, slut, idiot, moron.
Or to the problem of futility and wasted suffering. The red button, it's a thought experiment, but, if you really had a machine that could, create a black hole or whatever and just vaporize the Earth, it doesn't seem like that's so far off.
Yeah, exactly. Good video, Jay. Yeah, I know you got 17 more minutes, but whatever, I'm not going to play all that. But yeah, there's lots of ways to do this in a very passive and benign manner that doesn't involve any concentration camps or starving people to death or doing experiments on people or doing any of this other shit. Okay, so it's just a big fat lie that has to be some sort of undemocratic, some sort of brutally insensitive, horrific, blah, blah, blah. No, it's taking away people's right to play God. Taking away people's right, non-existent right, I'm born with a penis, therefore I'm God, I can create shit. No, you have to have a license. So, yeah, if somebody comes up with some brilliant excuse to explain why their genetic code has to be produced into the future, it has to exist. Now, if they can come up with a great argument, well, maybe we'll let them do it. But it's going to have to be one hell of a fucking argument, isn't it? Yeah, I think so. Anyway. No, this was just totally unsatisfactory. Yeah, fuck you. Ugh.